So I would like to take this opportunity to introduce myself. I'm Jonalyn Johnson, and I've been here at the college for 11 years now. And I want to also take the opportunity to welcome each of you. And I want to do it in an unorthodox sort of way. I was thinking about the many hats that women wear. Well, we all wear, but this is Women's History Month, so just indulge me. So I was thinking about the many hats that women wear. And so instead of a hat, I grabbed my daughter's crown, and I said, instead of a hat, let's think about the different crowns that we wear as I welcome everyone. And of course, we're here to welcome you to our celebration, which is the crowning glory of Women's History Month, because we're here at the end, and of course we know that March does not end Women's History Month, it's just an official observance. But while I was wearing my crown, I thought, wow, it would be awesome if I could remind each of these panelists who I have both personal and professional relationships with, that they also wear many crowns. And I'm so pleased that they represent the crown of leadership, they represent the crown of motherhood, they represent the crown of working women, they represent the crown of making their way to the top. They represent the crown of being wives, significant others, and I just want each of you, as I present them with their crown, it still has the tag on it, because that's as expensive as it is, and yes, also it's giving Minnie Pearl. And for those of you all who are a few generations removed, we'll explain who Minnie Pearl is later. But I would just let you pass one down. How about that? And I just want you all to remember, as I continue to welcome you all, that whenever you see any woman who is wearing her crown, and it may be a bit tilted, straighten it up, pat her on the back, and okay, awesome. Straighten it up, pat her on the back, and tell her how much you appreciate her. So again, welcome. And I would like to introduce Ms. Jermaine Elkins, who's the VP of Institutional Advancement. Jermaine. And of course I didn't leave you out.
I'm going to put my crown right here. Be with me. So I just want to say welcome also, and thank you, Jonalyn. You're always so eloquent. I love listening to you speak about anything, and I love the crown as the symbol for the woman today. So welcome everyone to Her View from the Top, our Women in Leadership panel discussion today. I'm Jermaine Elkins. I'm very honored to be the moderator today for a discussion with these 6 very talented and wonderful women, each remarkable in her own way. I'm going to read their bios that they sent to me. So if I get long-winded, it's not my fault. This is what they gave me. But I am pleased to start with Dr. Fallon McIver-Brewington, a new doctor, and going to be joining our Sandhills team here very, very soon. She's currently the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of the Sandhills, and this summer she's going to transition to Vice President of Continuing Education and Workforce Development here at Sandhills. She has a vast background in public and nonprofit and higher education sectors, expanding over 20 years. She's a certified professional in talent development and an adjunct in business and information technologies instructor at Richmond Community College. Before beginning her work with the Boys and Girls Club, she worked for Communities in Schools, where she served as the Director of Network Relations and Training and Director of Talent Development for Communities in Schools of North Carolina. She was the Executive Director of Communities in Schools of Richmond County. Prior to transitioning to Communities in Schools, she served as a business counselor, e-marketing specialist with the Small Business Technology Development Center at Fayetteville State University, as well as vice president, city executive for the State Employees Credit Union, where she began her professional career as an intern while at North Carolina State University. Fallon Brewington obtained her MS in vocational education from East Carolina University and a BS in business management from North Carolina State University. She fulfilled the requirements of her doctorate in adult and community college education at North Carolina State University, and her dissertation was titled An Examination of Virtual Reality on Online Workforce Training. Originally from Richmond County, Fallon attended Richmond Senior High School, but finished her junior and senior years at North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics. Fallon enjoys being a very active member of her local community, where she's president of More Young Professionals, vice chair of Habitat for Humanity of the Sandhills, and past president of the Junior League of Moore County. She's also a member of the Aberdeen Parks and Recreation Advisory Council, Moore County Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Task Force, and the Sunrise Theater Board of Directors. In March 2021, she was named one of the 20 under 40 by the Pilot newspaper and selected as a College of Education Alumni Ambassador for North Carolina State University this past December. Fallon is also a member of the Raleigh Triangle Area Association of Talent Development, VRAR Association, Golden Key International Honor Society, Kappa Delta Phi International Honor Society in Education, Phi Kappa Phi Honor Society, Phi Beta Kappa, Texas Computer Education Association, the Society for Human Resource Management, and the American Evaluation Association. Probably most important, right? Fallon has a 17-year-old daughter, Brianna, who's a senior and plans to attend North Carolina State University for biomedical engineering. I'm sure you're very proud of her. And she has a 9-year-old son, Jaden, who I know is Jaden with an I, who loves golf and video games, especially VR. Next, we have Rebecca Rausch, who was born and grew up in northeastern Ohio. Her father was a United Methodist minister his entire adult life, and her mother took care of him, her 4 siblings, and her. She was the baby of the family. She attended Ohio Wesleyan University, where she played volleyball and earned a bachelor's degree in zoology. She attended graduate school at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where she earned a master's of science and a PhD in zoology. Dr. Dempsey will tell you that Rebecca Rausch is one of the most intelligent, if not the most intelligent, members of our senior leadership team. Her area of research was animal behavior, specifically the vocal behavior of a species of monkey. After a quick stop in Mobile, Alabama, she landed in Moore County with her husband. In 1997, she was hired to teach anatomy and physiology part-time at night to paramedics working on their associate's degrees. It was an experience that was either going to make or break her as an instructor. After 2 years, she was selected for a full-time biology faculty position and has been at Sandhills ever since. In addition to her current role, she's served as Science Department Chair and Dean of Instruction. She lives in High Falls with her husband of 9 years. She has 3 dogs, 2 cats, 2 chickens, and a snake named Medusa, which I loved. Her kids are grown and mostly out of the house now. Rebecca also has a lovely piece of artwork in her office that happens to be done by the incredibly talented Captain Henry Brandt, who's my younger brother, so I always brag on that piece of art. Yeah. Next on the panel, we have Kelly Shumake. She is our Vice President of Student Services at Sandhills. And while she's been at Sandhills for 23 years, she spent the last 30 of her career in student services. Kelly believes that this is what she was destined to do. And as a Christian, she believes that this is where God has placed her to serve. And I think that's a beautiful sentiment. While her current title is Vice President, she grew up in student services, starting in the business office and accounts payable and quickly moving to financial aid, where she stayed for 10 years. First serving as the student loan coordinator and eventually working her way up to director. Her journey has included working in both the admissions and registrar's office. She credits these roles and the people she worked with as having helped to shape her into the leader and person she is today. As a brand new Nana, oh, look at that. Kelly has moved to a place where she knows that more important than her professional path are her personal accomplishments. She has 2 sons, one of whom is now married, and her daughter-in-law just had her very first grandchild. So congratulations, Kelly. No doubt this is going to be the most fun and fulfilling title you ever get to have in this life. So. Kelly put in her bio that her other son struggled with learning disabilities all his life, and helping him to overcome the challenges that came with those disabilities, helping him find his place in this world, has allowed her to better understand that students don't need a one-size-fit-all education. And that is one of those things that's so special about community college. Curriculum programs aren't the path for everyone, and we need to build relationships with our students to help them find their place and their path in life. So. It was a good thought, Kelly. Next we have Alfreda Thomas Stroman, who is a native of Bennettsville, South Carolina, and the daughter of the late Fred and Alma Thomas. She has 2 siblings, Fred and Sharon Thomas. She is married to Robert Stroman, a funny, motivated, God-fearing man, and they're the proud parents of sons Ronnie and Dwayne, and blessed abundantly to have 4 grandchildren to continue their legacy: Jaden, Jamari, Ari, and Rocco. Okay. I obviously am in the generation where it was Rocco's Modern Life. So yeah. Her motto in life is, "I'm not successful at what I do unless I'm helping others. Help somebody, then help yourself," which I think is lovely, and I think it is very indicative of what I have seen of you here at Sandhills. Her favorite scripture, "I can do all things through Jesus Christ who strengthens me," which is Philippians 4:13. Alfreda has served 37 years as a community college educator, previously working 11 years at Richmond Community College in Hamlet, and she's currently been at Sandhills for 26 years and is currently serving as our Dean of Campus Diversity and Inclusion College Initiatives, which a position she's held since 2017. Her memberships and community service include Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, the National Association of Diversity Officers in Higher Education, North Carolina Community College Leadership Program Mentor, the Boys and Girls Club of America, a Family Promise of Moore County, which is a nonprofit dedicated to providing shelter and services to homeless women and children, and she's a member of the NAACP. Next we have Irish Pickett, who's a native of Hoke County and a widow of a U.S. Army veteran, a mother of 6 beautiful children. Irish attended public schools in Hoke County and graduated from then Upchurch High School. She holds degrees from Fayetteville State University and UNC Pembroke. Irish retired from the public school system in 1999 with over 36 years of experience in both instruction and administrative leadership in Moore, Cumberland, and Hoke County schools. Currently, she's serving in her 4th term on the Hoke County School Board as chair. Irish is also proud to be serving her 3rd year as a member of the Sandhills Community College Board of Trustees. She supports her community by holding memberships in numerous local, civic, and regional organizations. Irish is a woman of faith. She is a member of the Piney Grove Missionary Baptist Church, where she serves as the superintendent of Sunday school. Last but certainly not least, we have our SGA Vice President, Michelle Marshall. She's a first-generation student from Shannon, North Carolina, and the proud daughter of Hoke County farmers. She was homeschooled from pre-K to high school, and after graduation, although her start in education was a little bit rocky, she's now maintaining a 3.9 GPA at Sandhills. And she is pursuing her associate's degree in digital media technology. She currently brands herself, which I love, I think that's very your generation, as a visual communicator. And after graduation, she plans to pursue a career in the education and web developing coding field, which I think is a wonderful goal. Like I said, she's the vice president of SGA. She's a member of Phi Theta Kappa. She came to Sandhills to create better opportunities for herself, and she has managed to do just that. I have sat with Michelle on many an occasion now and know that she is just an outstanding young lady, and I'm sure has an incredible future ahead of her. Moving forward, she wants to keep making progress as a young woman of color, both inside and outside of leadership positions, mentoring for others. She wants to continuously fuel the passion she has for working with others, building communities, learning, educating, and sharing her story. Our society says a woman should be so many things. However, she is simply happy to know that being herself is enough, which I thought was very, very nice. So I'm going to start with a question for each of you, and I think if it's okay, we'll just go down the table in order, starting with Kelly and ending with Alfreda. So what we're interested in hearing from you first is, can you tell us about the road that brought you to your leadership position, and include how you developed your leadership style and how you lead others?
By the way, if you want to see pictures of my new grandbaby after this, I'm happy to share them. Still glowing, still glowing. When I graduated from high school, I really never considered going to college. No one in my family had ever gone to college. So essentially, I just thought after high school, I was supposed to go get a job. And I did. I worked at a drugstore and then I worked at a bank, and I was pretty content with those jobs. Then I moved down south. By the way, I'm from upstate New York. Yes, a Yankee. But I am officially a Southerner. I've been down here longer now. But when I moved down south with my then fiance, now husband, I had the opportunity to get a job at a private college in a business office. First started as cashier, and then I did accounts payable. And then an opportunity came up in financial aid. And I started as the front desk person there. And that's when I fell in love with student services. And I truly mean fell in love. Like, the reward of helping people was just so exciting to me. So I got brave because I was absolutely terrified of starting college because I knew nothing about it. And I started to go to college while I worked my way up in financial aid, and eventually finished my degree as a non-traditional student. Actually walked across the stage with my bachelor's. I was 6 months pregnant. So I was a pretty big graduate walking across, but was very proud of it, but ended up as the director of financial aid at the private college, and then came to Sandhills, where I continued to work in financial aid. I was in financial aid, as my bio said, for 10 years. And then I was offered the opportunity to work as the director of admissions. And then after that, the opportunity to work as the registrar. And then I slowly moved my way up to the vice president. And the reason why I think it's important that you know those positions is it has helped me to develop my leadership style. I can actually have empathy for what each of the departments in student services are experiencing, because there's so much stress in every job, and as a leader, I felt like I could support them because I knew what they were going through. But there were obviously other things that affected my leadership style. For all of us, unfortunately, I made a lot of mistakes. I was grateful for the mistakes that I quickly figured out. And I was also more grateful for the people who cared enough about me to tell me when I was making a mistake. Because obviously we know we always learn the hard way. But those are a few things that helped me to develop my leadership style. But I think the one, honestly, that has had the greatest impact on my leadership style is the golden rule. Do unto others, the book of Matthew. I am a person who just cherishes genuine relationships. I value trust, and I value communication. And so I work hard every day to try to do that for others, to be genuine, to allow people to trust me. And I've failed, don't get me wrong, I've had days that I've failed, but I do think it's helped me to be the leader that I am today.
I think I've always known I was fortunate, but being at Sandhills, I've come to realize just how fortunate I was to have my parents that I had growing up. Two extremely supportive, loving individuals who I think taught all of us that, work hard, take advantage of opportunities, put yourselves out there, and be kind to others. And the world's your oyster, as they say. So I knew that I always loved animals, which is why I had to put my little quip about my animals in there. And my mom, who did not have a college education, but was there supporting my father and the family the whole way, was the one who told me that, you can study animals because you love animals, not because you're going to be a veterinarian. And I think I was 8, and that was all she wrote. And I was fortunate to go from high school to undergrad to grad school. And again, have come to appreciate watching my colleagues work on advanced degrees while they're working full-time, as they have families, to appreciate how fortunate I was to be able to do that. I think for me, the big part of the road piece is taking advantage of opportunities as they come, because I ended up in Pinehurst, North Carolina, because of my now ex-husband's job. I was still completing my my PhD, And so I found myself here, and I needed to figure out what to do, and walked in the door to see about, did they need someone to teach biology? And that was all she wrote. And I've been here ever since. As mentioned, I started out as a part-time faculty member, pursued a full-time position when it became available. I was pregnant, probably 6 months worth, for my interview, when I interviewed to move into full-time. And again, put my effort in where I was. So that's one thing, one message I want to get across today, that while it is absolutely important to think what opportunities might be there, have your goals for where you want to get to, but don't forget to be where you are and work hard. And I think that's part of why I've landed where I am today, is because I was invested where I was, which meant I saw places where I thought maybe I could do different or better than who was leading me at the time, and putting myself out there. So department chair, I had a fabulous department as the science department chair, learned a lot. At that time, I had landscape gardening and turf grass under me, which was a huge learning curve for me, but started to give me that appreciation and knowledge what AAS or technical programs look like. And then when I was selected as dean, again, I thought I knew lots. Well, maybe I did, but I still also did not know a lot. And that is something that I've come to appreciate. I've always been the type of person that if I'm going to ask someone else to do something, I'm going to do it first if I can. And that's another, I think, aspect of my leadership, is that I need to be willing to put myself out there and do, if I'm going to ask someone, the same of someone else. So that's a big part of what's brought me here. And then I would just say it's that teamwork aspect. Kelly spoke to empathy, right? And that is so huge. And so making others feel safe, making others feel heard, and then realizing at the end of the day, sometimes I just had to be the one to make the call. So teamwork, important. Team approach, important. But at the end of the day, it falls to me, and that means if something works, I'm going to give everybody else credit because it was a team effort. If something doesn't work, I'm going to take the credit and then work to find a solution.
I'm looking at her because our stories are very similar, but different paths to get there. So I will say that for me, my family, definitely my family background, it shaped a lot of who I am. What's different is, in families of color, we were taught and raised that education was the key. The only way you're going to get anywhere was education. And my parents instilled in me and my brother that because we didn't have the opportunity, you two are going to get a 4-year degree. Now, I now have a different passion and realize that a 4-year degree is not for everyone, which is why I'm here. But, it did have its rewards for my parents to push me to do that. I was a preacher's kid, or a PK. And so I watched my father being a minister and being a servant leader in the community. And my father, unfortunately, passed away my senior year in high school. So for me, having that support system and realizing how important they were to me and then to lose that was kind of my driving force to keep going. And so everything I do is, make my dad proud and do the things that he couldn't. I watched my father go back to school as an adult and get his associate's degree. And at the time he passed, he was working on his bachelor's degree in theology. So again, that motivated me. And that's what got me into wanting to do education. My father was a weave room supervisor for Burlington Mills in Rockingham for 29 years. And he quit before his 30th year because he got a teaching position at Richmond Senior High School. And everyone asked, why wouldn't you stay and do 30? He said, I wanted to teach. And so that's how I came to education. I left finance and went to education. And so that's where I've been ever since. And it led me to communities and schools and Boys and Girls Club because I know how important having a support system and a positive role model is. And I wanted to be that and have that influence on kids that may not have that. And it may not be to their own circumstances. In my case, my father passed away. And I think people assume that people don't have role models or have that support system for all different reasons, and it could be anything. It could change just like that. I will say that, having that support system and having him and instilling that in me, I want to make sure that I open doors for other people that they wouldn't have or wouldn't necessarily think they could have. So I try to go as high as I can in every position I'm in, just so that people see that they can do that. And I will say that you have to keep your eyes set on what's next for you. While you're in your current role and doing what you're doing, and you can absolutely love what you're doing and think that you may not leave it anytime soon, you have to be ready for the next opportunity. So that means going back, getting the highest education you can get, or advancing your skills, being a lifelong learner, I think is very important. And so again, as far as my leadership style, is servant leadership, and so that's why I said our stories are very similar.
So it's really interesting us sitting next to each other, because for me, my parents were not about education. I grew up on a farm, and they were like, you know what, this is free labor. No. But they really wanted me to learn like the life lessons, like where do our foods come from? What are we doing every day that leads us to be the next smart person, but not necessarily academic smart person. So my dad, he had, I believe, a 5th grade education. My mom, she dropped out of college so that when she was pregnant with me and my sister. So for me, I didn't really see myself really becoming a leader or coming to college after high school graduation. I graduated with the bare minimum to get into Sand Hills, which I believe was a 2.8, and thank my mother for helping me with that. But I realized that I didn't believe that leadership was something that could be for me. But something I did want to do was prepare myself for the next step. What else could I do with my life? I was 18, and I didn't want to stop going places or doing things. So my step was to step into ECA, which was the Effective Communication Association, a club here on campus. At the time, the advisor was Miss Kathleen Kruska, and I admire that woman for her wit and her composure at all times. And she really taught me what it meant to be a woman who could lead, who could walk into a room and you know what you have to say and you take the opportunity to say it. And it's because of her, I believe I achieved a 4.0 that year. I was so excited. I was like, I went from a 2.8 GPA to a 4.0. This is something I can do. It was that opportunity that let me see this was achievable. It wasn't just something that I heard about other people doing. They hit rock bottom and they climb up, and you hear it all the time. But this was something I could do. So when I was in ECA, I realized that I loved communication. I love talking to people. I love engaging with people. And that's how I choose to lead. I like to make interactions. I like to listen. I like to engage and reciprocate their communication. And sometimes you have to do better than other people's communication. So that's the way I learned how to lead. That's the way I try to lead myself, which I think is important. The way you lead others is also how you have to lead yourself. When I have a question, I find the answer. When I don't know something, I want to find someone who does know it. And if I'm going to ask someone else that, hey, this is a project we're trying to get done and I would like you to know what you're talking about, then I need to be there to say, I need to know what I'm talking about. I need to know the limits of what I don't know. And I believe that is what pushed me to become a leader, a little unwillingly, but I'm loving it now that I'm doing it. And that is what has encouraged me to continue to be a leader and strive for leadership positions.
But anyway, I would just like to say good morning to everybody. My story, I could really write a book, but I will only tell you just a few points this morning. I'm often asked that question, how did you get where you are today? And I wonder, why is this question always asked of me? And I came to the conclusion, I'm a woman of color, born in the rural South. Back in the 40s, no one expected me to even leave my community, much less complete high school and go to college. But I tell them, I'm blessed because I couldn't have gotten where I am today had it not been for the grace of God. And that's absolutely true. I was born to a single mother, raised on a farm, sharecropper's farm, back in the 40s and 50s. My mother had an 8th grade education. But one thing my family did have, they had love. They loved each other. They loved me. They were deep-rooted in their faith, and they believed in God. And my mother would always tell me, I didn't get the opportunity to graduate from high school, but I want you to be able to graduate. I want better for you than I have for myself. I don't want you to spend your life on a farm. I want you to be able to support yourself. Those words stay with me because she said one thing, you know, our family, we have strong work ethics. We persevere, and we believe in education. We believe that we can do anything by the grace of God. And I want you to believe that. I always want you to believe that you are somebody. You were created. You know better than anyone else. And no one else is better than you. You thank God for who you are. And I thank God that I was able to go to high school and complete my high school education, to go to college, Fayetteville State, Teachers College at that time. And that was a norm for women of color. You couldn't do anything else but probably teach school or take a nursing course, cosmetology course. And that was mostly limited for us. But I thank God that I was able to graduate from Fayetteville State College and began my teaching career. I was born, as I said, in the rural South in a little poor town of Hope County. But guess where my first teaching job was? It was at Academy Heights High School in Pinehurst, North Carolina. Thank God. And you know, I will never forget Miss Lester. She was the supervisor here at that time. She was in my class every Thursday. But she was there to give me constructive criticism, and she did. And I was very glad. And whenever I got married, while I was here, and I moved to Fort Bragg, and I got a job in Hope County. When I got a job in Hope County, you know, I said when I left Pinehurst, I can teach anywhere in the world. And I could do it. I believed in myself. And I could do it. I did really well. But being a woman of color, and as James Brown said, living in a man's world, we didn't see anybody, I didn't see anybody like myself in leadership positions. All my principals, men, no women. Okay, that's good. But one day, the superintendent appointed a woman as principal. I said, oh my God. That gives me hope. Well, one day, I would love to be a principal or an assistant principal. And by the grace of God, I got the opportunity one day. As a woman of color, you read so much about the barriers that's placed in the way of women of color in leadership positions. And that's so true. But I did not confront the battles of the barriers that they had to. When I got my first assistant principalship position, it was at the middle school when my principal retired, and the assistant principal moved up to the principalship position. I had my certification by that time, my degree, and he said, Pickett, did you apply for the assistant principalship position? I said, no. Because at that time, being a woman of color, you've already had one, and I know you're not going to see two in the same county. So I said, no, I didn't. And he said, you know what? I want you to apply for it. I want you as my assistant principal. I said, okay. I filled out my application, took it to the board, and I was accepted. So my start began right there in Hope County, from a teacher in the middle school to the assistant principal, and I never looked back. But you know, and I thought, my church is the same way as the world. We didn't have any women leaders in my church. They couldn't get in the pulpit, they couldn't preach. They couldn't be the superintendent of Sunday school. They couldn't even be the first Bible teacher. But back in '74, the superintendent was killed in a tragic accident, he and his wife. And you know, they appointed me to be the superintendent of Sunday school in his place. The first in the history of my church to appoint a woman as superintendent. And you know what? It's the last woman that they appointed as superintendent. I still hold that position today. I still hold it today. It's so proud. And I said, you know what James Brown did say, it's a man's world. And it really is. But you know what? Women now punch at the ceiling. And there's some cracks in there. However, they have not completely broken the glass. But we are thankful for where we are today. Also, when my husband passed, he was on Northwest Water Incorporation Company. That's the only minority-owned water system in North Carolina, y'all. It's in Hope County. So whenever he died, I was chosen, appointed to be on that position, on that board, to fill his position. I was on there about 4 years. And then I was appointed as president of the board. Y'all have to understand me. I'm always asking to do something, and I want to help you to do this, and like to serve, but you know, I'll do this, and I would volunteer for so many things. And they said, okay, we're going to appoint you as the president. And I held that position about 7 years. But I really wanted to know, and that's the reason I volunteer so much for different things, because I want to know how it works, how it runs. And it has been very helpful to me. So I served as president of Northwest Water Supply for approximately 7 years. And after that, I served on several boards, on almost every board they have in Hope County. And it has helped me on my journey. And so proud to have been chosen to serve on the Board of Education in Hope County, and as well as the board's trustee board here. But my journey, as I said, wasn't easy. My mother sacrificed so much for me. And she always told me to believe in myself, work hard, have faith, and you will be able to achieve. And that I have done. As far as my leadership style, it's just like someone's already said. My leadership style is based on the golden rule. I look at other leaders, I observe, I research, and I looked at different leadership styles. My style is unique because I don't have one particular style. It's a blend of styles that I have, depending on the audience, depending on the goal that we are trying to reach. And one thing that I know most of all, that everyone deserves respect. And whenever I choose to work with people, I look at that. And I want a leader that will do unto others as they would do unto himself. I would like to serve in that position, and I do it that way. So I may have a little blending of the servant leadership style, along with the democratic style, where you may have transformational mixed with a little collaboration. It's just a little blend of everything, depending on whom I'm working with, you see, and making sure that I respect them and they respect me. You cannot lead if you cannot get respect of others. No one's going to follow you. You can't lead unless you have followers. And if you don't respect the people that you have to help you to get the goal completed, but have that shared vision as you have that's going to work with you, you're not going anyplace. So I do it to others as I have them to do it to me, to make sure that we complete the project in which we are working. So that's my style.
To answer this question as far as my past leadership, I have to say that I always call on the ancestors. I always call on my parents, and I always call on the Lord to guide me, okay? But I have to say that as a child, I was taught that I could do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens me. So that is my favorite verse, and I live by that. But I also have to say that I was exposed to several positive people growing up in my church life, in my community, and there were people, even my parents were leaders in their community, but there were so many others who were joined at the hip, who gave me some direction, and I have to call out Ms. Elizabeth Ellison. She was one of my mentors, and she got me started in Girl Scouts. So to the ranks of Girl Scouts, Brownie, Junior, Cadet, Senior, even ended up, because of her, becoming a troop leader and district manager for my hometown. And through Girl Scouting, I learned so many leadership skills about delegating and working with others and respect and reaching out to the community. And that's another reason why my motto is help somebody then help yourself. I learned early to take the eye off myself and focus on others. I also have to say that I was introduced to Greek fraternities, sororities. I had a big sister, I call her name, Gertrude Josie. And she told me that, you know, I want you to be community conscious oriented. And she would take me to activities on Saturdays just to learn skills that would help me in life. You know, life is about learning something every day. So those are the most important. There's so many people that touch me, but I always stand on my faith. I always look to others, and I understand it's not all about me. Now, when it comes to how I lead, I have to tell you that I try my best to lead by example. I lead by example. And I also learned early on after serving in this capacity, having a team of folks, surround folks. You want to bring people with you who see the vision and who work with you. But also, I think back to my days as department chair. It seemed like that time would never end. No one wanted to step in and vote me out. And I basically learned then that, okay, a good leader will delegate. You hire people and select people who you feel that you're confident and you know that they get the job done. As far as the style, micromanaging is something that I just have a distaste for. Because if you want people to work with you, you have to respect them. And you have to respect them as individuals. And after you respect them, they will see that you're sincere. It's all about basic respect. And it's also, I learned as far as leading and an example of leadership, I learned early that conflict arises in leadership. And as a leader, you have to address that and be proactive. I'm sure if everyone's sitting at this table, they talk about one of the greatest obstacles in leadership is when you have to have that conversation. And that opposition comes to the surface. I found that as a leader, I needed to address it, and once it's done, it's over. You know, we have a tendency, I like to think in terms of being positive, I like to think in terms of having a positive mental attitude or a prayerful mental attitude. That's what gets me through the day. So, as a leader, I feel that the path I was exposed early in grade school, in high school, in church, and today I'm here with a few months left before I say goodbye. But I look back and I don't have any regrets because, as I said earlier, I called on my ancestors. I call them out every day so that they can guide me along with that Holy Spirit. So that's where I am as far as leadership. And everything that each of you said, I can identify with. And I understand as a woman of color, there have been challenges, and the ceiling is a crack. There's still room for improvement. And I realize that, you know, persistence is what it's going to take, and not getting hung up on nails, because you cannot control people, but you can control yourself.
Those are such wonderful words of wisdom. And I love, one of those things that was really hitting me as I was sitting here, I love the fact that we have this group of remarkable women, and that everything you were saying I was feeling built up about. And I think one of those things that women need to make a point to do, especially when they find themselves in leadership roles, is to build each other up, and to do what we can to support and mentor each other. I want to circle back around to Irish. We talked a little bit about those cracks that are being broken into the ceiling. I'm going to give a plug to my mama here. She was the only woman graduate in 1973 from the business school of Armstrong State who majored in accounting, and I have always looked up to her as one of those women in my life who was, you know, pushing through those glass ceilings and doing something, and being one of the first women I saw to do it. Why do you think that we don't see as many women in leadership positions? Do you think that's changing? What do you think? Why don't we see as many women as leaders?
Okay, one thing I think, in looking at that question there that he sent to me, men have always been the dominant figure when it came to leadership. And years have passed since women have been given the opportunity to even dare to try to lead. And, but they have. Now they have begun to seek those positions. So the reason I said they have made a little punch there. We are not where we should be at this time, that I think. And I think it's because of stereotypes. You know, people do not have the faith in women as they have in men. They think women are weaker and they cannot be leaders. They think they're too soft. I think that have a lot to do with it. And the trust. Men of them just don't trust women. But now when I see some women now have made it, when I look, you know, in politics, and I said, okay, when we started, when the Constitution was written, we had all males were the one that signed. All presidents that we've had in the United States, men. But now we do have a female vice president, so that's a little crack somewhere. She's trying to get there, not there yet. But we look at that. We also look at women now that have been promoted to presidents of colleges. They're not all male today. So that's another little crack. Every time we see a lady able to move up, I think that's a crack being made in the ceiling. But we still have a long way to go, especially in many of the major corporations that we have. Women are harassed. They say there's a lot of harassment in the higher companies when women try to get there. So I think all of that has something to do with women not believing in themselves or even trying to press on because they're afraid they're not going to be accepted, and they just don't try. But for those that persevere, those that keep going, they are cracking the ceiling, and one day we're going to completely crush it. But we are, let me tell you this, if you saw the interview last week of Judge Brown, did you see how the men of the male did her? They wouldn't have done that had that been a man sitting there for that position. But men try to intimidate women. They try to break them down before they can even get up. You got to be a strong woman to sit there and go through an interview like she did. But I was so proud of her because she remained calm. She was well educated. She knew exactly when to say, what to say, how to say it, and she didn't let them rattle her. She was calm demeanor. And I learned a lot from her, just observing her. I said, okay, I can change my attitude now at times whenever I'm confronted with this. But I think to me, the stereotypes, the harassment and the mistrust, all of those are issues I think that women face when they are trying to rise to the top. Now someone else may say something, better than this, but that's just me. That's what I think.
Well, thank you. And go to Fallon. Kind of along those same lines, would you talk about what you think has been the most significant barrier that you've faced in your career and how you worked to overcome it?
It goes back to a lot of what she has said. I think that there's sometimes an invisible goalpost for certain positions and things like that. And so you can think you have all the qualifications that you need, and then they'll say you need something else. Or, you know what, we really like to have someone with a doctorate or this. So I think for me, that's what it's been. Is they already have in their mind what they want, and so they move the goalpost and make you have more than what they would have normally required for a male or someone else that they had envisioned for a position. So again, that's why I go back and say you have to be prepared for that next step. You have to go above and beyond where you are to be ready when that right opportunity comes along.
Let's go over to Kelly. Kelly, when you began your career, did you imagine that you would end up in the role you've ended up in?
Absolutely not. When I was in high school, I was extremely shy and had absolutely no confidence. I had book smarts, but still did not believe in myself. And because no one in my family ever went to college, my goal was to try to find a trade while I was in high school. And I think this is an important story to share because it's about overcoming failure. For those of you who know me, yes, I had the book smarts, but I'm the most uncoordinated person in the world. But I didn't know that when I was in high school. And so we had trade school in high school. And I decided that I wanted to be a cosmetologist. And I thought I would be amazing at being a cosmetologist. And so I went through a year and a half of the trade school. I had straight A's in all of the written tests. But my teachers pulled me aside, both of them, and said, Kelly, we promise to pass you if you promise never to practice cosmetology. Apparently, you're not supposed to make people bleed on a regular basis, but I was heartbroken because that's what I wanted to do, and I didn't consider college. And it took me a lot to get over that, but what it made me realize is that, okay, that's not my strength, that's not my path, but there are other things out there for me. And I decided to use, okay, you're good with your brain, Kelly, you're good with people. And that is eventually what directed me to where I am today. I gave up for a while, and I later on, didn't even consider it a failure. I was thankful for it because it guided my path to where I am.
Rebecca, or Dr. Roush, Alfreda talked for a minute about having challenging conversations. My question for you, how do you push for systemic change around ideas that are maybe not so popular?
So a couple of things come to mind. One is making sure that everyone is at the table, everyone has a voice. As I've been dean and as I've been in my current role, there have been some significant changes, projects that have come down to us, either from SAC COC, our accrediting body, or from the system office. And so these are things that we don't have a choice in. We have to figure out how to do it. And it's very easy, and I am one of those people, absolutely, who sits there and say, why did they do this? Why did they do that? This should be this should be that. But it's not. And so accepting that myself and then bringing everybody to the table, accepting whatever the project is, whatever the rules are, for better or for worse, and then figuring out how are we going to make it work for us? How are we going to make it work for Sandhills, our faculty, our staff, our students? And so I really think it's about giving everyone a voice. We have the kind of cliche of make sure you talk to all your stakeholders. Well, it's true. And listening with an open mind, maybe pushing some folks to use their voice. My partner in crime is an introvert. I'm an extrovert, and I've learned a lot about understanding, the different approaches we have to a situation and how we complement each other in that regard. But really being aware that you've got to give folks time to think about, to process. I worked very closely with a colleague when I was first hired full-time. I was relatively young, technology savvy. I was going to come in and change the biology world, and freaked him out and learned that I needed to present the problem or present the thought and say, what do you think? Would this be cool? Don't tell me right now. Is this something we could do? And give him time. And more often than not, he came back to me and said, I think. And absolutely, we ended up in a better place and with a better product than if I had tried to just do it myself. Difficult conversations, absolutely. And one of the things that I'm still working on is calling people out, for lack of a better way of saying it. Saying to someone, either you really hurt me or what you said could be really hurtful to someone else, and knowing the right way to go about doing that. Because again, I don't want to shame anybody. I always want to show people respect. But in some of the most important ways that we still continue to need to change, those conversations have to be had. And I think a big thing is educating yourself, whether it's on the big topics or on the specific situation you're in, and then helping others do the same.
Alfreda, would you talk about the strategies that work well to promote inclusion in the workplace?
First of all, we have to educate ourselves, and then you try to educate others, those who are around you. Another thing is to practice mindfulness. I think to build strategies that will promote inclusion, those are the first things we need to do. But also I need to stress the importance of calling out or managing those biases, those unconscious biases. For many people, they're unconscious, but I think we have to call those things out. Another thing is to be persistent. And I know everyone probably says, oh, if she says that word one more time, I'll scream, build a campus of inclusion, but that's what it takes.
it's so important that we be persistent, and we also be mindful that we have to include these buzzwords that have meaning now, belonging, equity. And after you do that, you have training ground. And I think this is something we did, some who are in the room who may be remembering back in the day or a few years ago before COVID, we did campus-wide training for faculty and staff. And that was important because if we're going to, we have to get everyone on board. This work means that it's not just my job, it's everyone's job. And we know that word belonging is a part of us now. So either we walk it and talk it, or are we just going to, play around with it or check the box. Another thing is I've been able to acknowledge holidays. I think that's so important, what we're doing today. All cultures, whether it's Juneteenth or whether it's Cinco de Mayo, I think we have to, it's important to include everyone. And then we have to get faculty, and I have to give kudos to colleagues over in continuing ed, because I have been with them on 2 or 3 occasions at their staff council meetings just to talk about inclusion. I've been over to health sciences, and once everyone on campus realized that this is something important, we all win in this situation. So these are just some of the strategies. Be open about the conversations. Be willing to call it out. Be like a broken record, because I can be that way sometimes, but I think it's important. And eventually we bring others along. So those are some of the strategies. We have to realize that everyone has their own opinion. We can respect it, but there's a process. There's a process. So those are some of the strategies.
So I'm going to ask our youngest panelist to wrap us up. I'm going to shift your question just a tiny bit based off of something else you answered to the first question. Knowing how you've taken control of your destiny really here at Sandhills, and seeing what you're setting out for yourself as your goals, what advice would you give to other students in your situation on balancing everything in your life and really pushing yourself forward to your next goal?
Balance is not something that I use as a tool to achieve my goals. Balance is my goal. So I try to make everything I'm doing. So for example, I would like to graduate next year as a digital media production student. Hopefully I maintain my 3.9 GPA. But included in that goal is also I want to be financially stable when I do so. I want to be mentally hopefully stable there too. So I believe that making your goals be balanced is an easier way to accomplish than setting this high standard for yourself and then saying, oh, well, I need to make sure I'm going to bed on time. I need to make sure I'm staying hydrated. Actually make that a part of what your bigger picture is, rather than realizing you're failing some parts of your life, but you're excelling in others. And I think that's something that's helped me navigate what I'm going for. It's helpful also to write down what you're doing, what your plans are, what your goals are, and how you're trying to get there. So even if it's just saying, today I'm going to do this, or this month I'm going to do this, or this year I'm going to do this, strive towards that, and don't be so hard on yourself when you miss that. So that's that balance for me, not necessarily using it as a tactic to get to your goals, but making it your goal itself.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Well, I'm going to thank all of our panelists for taking the time to be here. And I want to thank Matt Dial and Mady Ash and John Erlin Johnson and everyone who helped organize this. And thank you all so much for coming today. I think that concludes our Women's Leadership panel. And thank you again for coming.